The massive space station Nexus Prime floated in the darkness, between stars like a giant metal city. Ships from dozens of different worlds docked at its ports every day. The station served as the meeting place for the Galactic Council, where representatives from 43 different species gathered to make decisions that affected billions of lives across the galaxy. Captain Jake Morrison walked through the main corridor of the station with his small team of humans. They had arrived 3 days ago as the newest members of the Galactic Council. Earth had finally been invited to join the galactic community after decades of careful diplomatic work. Other species had watched humanity for years, trying to decide if these newcomers could be trusted with the responsibilities that came with membership. The corridor buzzed with activity as various alien species moved about their business. The Vorthic delegation stomped past in their heavy armor, their footsteps echoing loudly off the metal walls. These warrior-like beings stood nearly 8 feet tall and carried plasma weapons that could cut through steel. Their leader, General Corex, made sure everyone knew about their military might by speaking loudly about recent victories in border conflicts. Near the central plaza, a group of crystalline Ashkari had gathered around a holographic display. Their bodies sparkled like living diamonds as they performed complex mathematical calculations in the air. The equations floated above their heads in bright blue light, showing off their superior intelligence to anyone who would watch. They spoke in musical tones about their latest scientific discoveries and how their technology surpassed that of most other species. Admiral Lisa Parker sat quietly on a bench near the fountain in the center of the plaza. She wore a simple gray uniform without any decorations or medals. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and she held a small electronic tablet in her hands. To anyone watching, she appeared to be reading routine reports. In reality, she was studying every detail of the station's layout, noting the positions of security cameras, emergency exits, and defensive systems. Lieutenant Ben Collins appeared to be admiring the artwork that decorated the walls. The station builders had included sculptures and paintings from many different worlds to make visitors feel welcome. Ben walked slowly from piece to piece, taking pictures with a small device. Other species assumed he was simply a tourist collecting memories. They did not notice that his device was actually mapping the station's internal structure, recording the exact location of power conduits, communication lines, and structural weak points. Dr. Alex Turner had positioned himself near a cafe where many alien species gathered to eat and socialize. He sat alone at a small table, sipping a cup of coffee while reading what appeared to be a medical journal on his tablet. The reptilian Nixari delegates often stopped by his table to chat about human biology and medicine. They found Turner to be a pleasant and knowledgeable conversation partner. What they did not realize was that Turner was conducting a detailed psychological study of every species he encountered, learning their behavioral patterns, emotional triggers, and decision-making processes. The Croxian delegation made the most noise of any group on the station. These massive 4-armed beings stood over 9 feet tall and weighed nearly half a ton each. Their leader, Warlord Thex, enjoyed challenging other species to tests of strength. He would roar with laughter when smaller beings declined his invitations to wrestle or arm wrestle. Thex had publicly called humans weak meat creatures who hide behind their machines during yesterday's council session. He seemed to find great amusement in the fact that the human delegation was so much smaller and quieter than his own. San Rodriguez, the human security chief, had spent most of his time exploring the lower levels of the station. He told anyone who asked that he was simply familiarizing himself with the emergency procedures. The station's security officers appreciated his thoroughness and had given him complete access to all areas. Rodriguez had used this access to identify 17 different ways that hostile forces could take control of critical systems. He had also located 12 potential escape routes that were not marked on any official maps. Maya Johnson worked in the communications center, helping to coordinate messages between Earth and the various human ships in the area. The Zelthian technicians who ran the center found her to be quiet and efficient. She learned their systems quickly and rarely asked for help. They had no idea that Johnson was simultaneously mapping the entire galactic communication network, identifying relay stations, encryption methods, and potential points of failure that could be exploited in an emergency. Engineer Pete Wallace spent his days in the station's maintenance areas, claiming that he wanted to understand how such a large structure remained operational. The maintenance staff enjoyed having someone show genuine interest in their work. Wallace asked detailed questions about power generation, life support systems, and artificial gravity. He took careful notes about backup systems and emergency protocols. The maintenance crew thought he was simply curious about engineering. They did not suspect that Wallace was memorizing every critical system on the station and learning exactly how to disable or control each one. The daily council meetings took place in a large chamber at the center of the station. Representatives from each species sat in assigned sections, with the most powerful civilizations occupying the best positions. The Vorthic delegation sat near the front, their weapons displayed prominently on the walls behind them. The Ashkari had arranged their seating area to showcase their most impressive technological devices. Even the peaceful Nixari had decorated their section with symbols of their ancient wisdom and cultural achievements. The human section appeared almost empty by comparison. 5 simple chairs arranged in a semicircle, with no decorations or displays of power. Admiral Parker sat in the center, with Captain Morrison to her right and Dr. Turner to her left. They listened carefully to every debate, but rarely spoke unless directly asked a question. When they did speak, their comments were brief and practical. Other species began to wonder if humanity truly belonged among the galactic powers. The Ashkari whispered among themselves about whether humans possessed sufficient intelligence for council membership. The Croxians made jokes about human weakness. Even their Nexari allies privately questioned whether Earth's military was strong enough to contribute meaningfully to galactic security. What none of them noticed was the look in Admiral Parker's eyes as she observed each heated debate. They did not see the slight smile that crossed Captain Morrison's face when Warlord Vex made his loudest threats. They completely missed the way Dr. Turner's fingers moved across his tablet, recording every word and analyzing every gesture for future reference. The humans were learning. They were watching. And they were preparing for something that none of the other species could yet imagine. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began at dawn station time. Admiral Parker arrived early and took her usual seat in the human section. The chamber filled quickly as representatives hurried in, their faces showing concern and anger. Reports had been flooding in all night about coordinated pirate attacks across 3 different star systems. Captain Morrison reviewed the data on his tablet as other delegates argued loudly around him. The attacks had been devastating and precise. Pirates had hit cargo convoys carrying medical supplies to colony worlds. They had ambushed diplomatic vessels traveling between allied systems. Most disturbing of all, they had somehow known exactly when and where each target would be most vulnerable. General Corex of the Vorthic stood at the center of the chamber, his massive frame towering over the other delegates. His voice boomed across the room as he described the latest attack on a Vorthic supply ship. The pirates had known the exact route, the exact time, and even the specific cargo being carried. They had disabled the ship's engines with surgical precision, taken what they wanted, and disappeared before any help could arrive. The crystalline Ashkari representative, Prime Calculator Zenth, projected holographic star charts into the air. Above the assembly, the mathematical precision of the attacks was undeniable. Each pirate strike had occurred at the optimal moment for maximum success with minimum risk. The coordination required suggested a level of intelligence and planning that exceeded typical criminal organizations. Warlord Dex slammed his 4 fists on the table in front of him. The sound echoed through the chamber like thunder. He declared that the Croxian Empire would dispatch their most powerful battle fleet immediately. 50 warships equipped with the latest plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes would sweep through the affected systems and burn every pirate vessel from space. Other delegates cheered at this display of determination. The Ashkari announced their own response with typical mathematical precision. They would deploy 12 of their most advanced vessels, each equipped with predictive targeting systems and cone reality warping defensive shields. Prime Calculator Zenth projected complex tactical algorithms that showed how their superior technology would outmaneuver any pirate force, even the peaceful. Nexari committed significant resources to the effort. Their ancient wisdom and diplomatic connections would help coordinate the various fleets. They promised to share intelligence and provide strategic support to ensure the pirates could not escape justice. Every major species made grand announcements about their contributions to the joint operation. The chamber buzzed with excitement as massive fleets were promised and bold strategies were outlined. Representatives competed to show whose response would be most impressive and effective. Captain Morrison raised his hand quietly during a brief pause in the discussions. The chamber fell silent as attention turned to the human delegation. Morrison stood slowly and cleared his throat before speaking in a calm, steady voice. He requested permission to deploy a single human vessel to assist in the operation. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Warlord Dex's booming voice rose above the others as he asked if the humans planned to send their entire fleet. More laughter followed as other delegates imagined a lone human ship trying to accomplish what would require hundreds of vessels from other species. Admiral Parker stood and provided the details in her quiet, professional manner. The Earth vessel Guardian would be deployed with a crew of 30 personnel. The ship was a standard frigate with modest defensive capabilities. She assured the Council that the human contribution would not interfere with the larger operations planned by the major powers. Prime Calculator Zenth performed rapid calculations in the air above his seat. The mathematical probability of a single small vessel making any meaningful contribution was essentially 0. He suggested with polite concern that humanity might consider sending additional ships to avoid potential embarrassment. The Nexari representative, Elder Voss, approached the human delegation after the session ended. His reptilian features showed genuine worry as he spoke privately with Admiral Parker. He explained that the pirates had been unusually well equipped in recent months. Their ships carried weapons and shields that rivaled military-grade technology. A single frigate might not survive an encounter with such forces. While other species prepared their grand fleets with great ceremony, the human team worked quietly in their assigned quarters. Intelligence Officer Kate Williams had been analyzing attack patterns for weeks, long before the emergency session was called. Her investigation had revealed disturbing inconsistencies in the pirate activities. The attacks were too well coordinated to be random. Someone with access to shipping schedules, diplomatic itineraries, and military patrol routes was providing information to the pirates. Williams had identified several patterns that suggested the leak was coming from within Nexus Prime itself. But she kept this discovery to herself for now. Dr. Turner continued his behavioral studies with renewed focus. He had been observing the council members for weeks, noting their reactions, their body language, and their decision-making patterns. Certain delegates showed signs of stress that seemed unrelated to the current crisis. One species in particular had been displaying suspicious behavioral changes that warranted closer investigation. The Guardian arrived at Nexus Prime 3 days later. The ship looked unremarkable compared to the massive battle fleets gathering in nearby systems. Its hull was painted in simple gray colors with minimal decoration. No impressive weapons were visible on its exterior. The vessel appeared to be exactly what Admiral Parker had described, a modest frigate with a small crew. Chief Tactical Officer Ryan Lewis supervised the loading of supplies and equipment. To outside observers, the Guardian seemed to be carrying standard defensive systems and basic sensor arrays. Other species military attaches who toured the ship found nothing particularly impressive about its capabilities. They filed reports describing the human vessel as adequate, but unremarkable. Navigator Julie Barnes worked with the station's traffic control to plot the Guardian's departure route. She requested detailed star charts of the affected systems and asked numerous questions about gravitational anomalies, stellar phenomena, and sensor blind spots. The traffic controllers assumed she was being overly cautious about navigating through potentially dangerous areas. Medical Officer Steve Clark loaded medical supplies that seemed excessive for a crew of 30. He requisitioned trauma equipment, surgical tools, and pharmaceutical supplies that could treat hundreds of patients. When questioned about the large quantities, he explained that they might encounter survivors from attacked vessels who would need immediate medical attention. Engineer Wallace spent hours in the station's technical libraries studying the design, specifications of various alien ship types. He claimed to be preparing for potential rescue operations where the Guardian might need to interface with damaged vessels from other species. The librarians were impressed by his thoroughness and provided access to detailed technical manuals. Communications Specialist Carl Murphy worked with Maya Johnson to establish secure communication protocols with Earth and other human installations across the galaxy. They tested multiple backup systems and redundant channels. Station technicians helped them configure the equipment, assuming they were simply being careful about maintaining contact with their home world. The departure ceremony for the major fleets was held in the main hangar bay. Thousands of spectators gathered to watch as the most powerful warships in the galaxy prepared to launch. Vorthic generals gave speeches about honor and victory. Ashkari commanders demonstrated their technological superiority. Nexari elders offered blessings for the success of the mission. The Guardian slipped away quietly from a secondary docking port while attention focused on the grand ceremony. No speeches were made. No crowds gathered to watch. Captain Morrison simply gave the order to depart, and the small human ship disappeared into space. Elder Voss contacted Admiral Parker privately after the departure. He expressed concern that the humans might not understand the true danger they were facing. The pirates had become increasingly bold and well-armed. Several military patrols had been ambushed and destroyed in recent weeks. He offered to provide additional intelligence and suggested that the Guardian should avoid direct confrontation whenever possible. Admiral Parker thanked him for his concern and assured him that Captain Morrison and his crew understood the risks. She explained that humans preferred to study a problem carefully before taking action. The Guardian would observe and gather information while the larger fleets engaged the enemy directly. What Elder Voss and the other council members did not know was that the Guardian carried sensor equipment far more advanced than its external appearance suggested. The ship's computers contained detailed files on every known pirate vessel and suspected base of operations. Most importantly, the crew had a plan that none of the other species would understand until it was too late for the pirates to escape. The Guardian moved through space like a shadow, following routes that other ships avoided. Navigator Barnes used her knowledge of gravitational fields and stellar radiation to mask their approach. The ship's sensors remained passive, gathering information without revealing their position, while massive alien fleets announced their presence with active scans and broadcast demands for pirate surrender. The Guardian listened and watched in silence. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge reviewing reports from the other fleets. The Vorthic Armada had swept through the Keltari system with tremendous firepower, destroying 3 asteroid bases that appeared to be pirate strongholds. The Ashkari squadron had engaged enemy vessels near the Proxima trade route, using their advanced technology to disable several pirate ships. Yet somehow, the main pirate forces always seemed to escape just before the major attacks began. Intelligence. Officer Williams worked in her small cabin, surrounded by data streams from across the galaxy. She was not hunting pirates directly. Instead, she was hunting the pattern itself. Every pirate attack left traces in communication networks, shipping databases, and financial records. Williams had spent months building relationships with human traders, engineers, and scientists scattered across dozens of alien worlds. These humans were not spies in any traditional sense. They were merchants selling Earth goods to alien markets. They were technicians helping to repair alien machinery. They were researchers studying in alien universities. To the galaxy's other species, they appeared to be ordinary civilians pursuing normal activities. What the aliens did not realize was that every human in space had been carefully selected and trained before leaving Earth. The breakthrough came when Williams received a coded message from a human engineer working on a mining station in the Outer Rim. The engineer, Danny Walsh, had been helping to upgrade the station's computer systems when he noticed unusual activity in the communication logs. Someone had been accessing shipping schedules through the station's connection to the galactic network, but the access pattern was too sophisticated for local pirates. Williams cross-referenced this information with similar reports from other human assets. A human trader named Lisa Chun had noticed strange questions being asked at a commercial hub near the core worlds. A researcher called Tom Brady reported unusual interest in diplomatic schedules at an academic conference. Each incident seemed minor by itself, but together they painted a clear picture of systematic information gathering. The key discovery came from engineer Wallace aboard the Guardian. Working with communications specialist Murphy, Wallace had been analyzing the electronic signatures of all messages sent to and from Nexus Prime. Every communication device left unique traces in the quantum fields used for faster-than-light transmission. By studying these signatures, they could identify who was sending messages and where those messages were going. The analysis revealed that someone with high-level clearance at Nexus Prime had been sending coded transmissions to locations in the pirate-controlled territories. The messages were disguised as routine administrative communications, but their timing matched perfectly with the preparation phases of every major pirate attack. Dr. Turner worked with the Guardian's computer systems to build psychological profiles of all council members. His weeks of observation on Nexus Prime had provided detailed behavioral data for every species representatives. He analyzed speech patterns, body language, stress responses, and decision-making processes. One profile stood out as particularly interesting. Counselor Vex of the Malith Consortium showed signs of deception stress during discussions about trade security. His species was known for their skill in economic manipulation, but Vex displayed behavior patterns that suggested active involvement in illegal activities. Turner noted that Vex consistently advocated for policies that would benefit from continued pirate activity, while appearing to support anti-piracy measures. Meanwhile, the public fleets continued their spectacular but largely ineffective campaigns. The Vorthek forces engaged in several major battles, destroying numerous pirate vessels in impressive displays of firepower. However, the pirates seemed to know exactly when and where these attacks would occur. They evacuated their most valuable assets before each assault, leaving behind only empty bases and expendable ships. The Ashkari squadron achieved several tactical victories using their superior technology, but the strategic situation continued to deteriorate. Pirate attacks actually increased in frequency and sophistication, while the major fleets were engaged in combat operations. It became clear that someone was using the fleet movements to create opportunities for new attacks in undefended areas. Captain Morrison realized that the conspiracy involved more than just selling information to pirates. Someone was deliberately prolonging the conflict to achieve larger goals. When a major peace treaty between the Helian Federation and the Kef Alliance was threatened due to pirate attacks on diplomatic convoys, Morrison understood the true scope of the operation. The pirates were not just seeking profit. They were being used as a weapon to destabilize interspecies relationships and disrupt the balance of power in the galaxy. Every attack was carefully planned to cause maximum political damage while appearing to be random. Criminal activity. Williams activated her network of human assets across the galaxy to gather additional evidence. The response was swift and coordinated. Within days, reports arrived from dozens of systems containing detailed information about suspicious financial transactions, unusual equipment purchases, and secret communications. A human accountant working for an alien banking consortium discovered evidence of payments to known pirate organizations. The money was being transferred through a complex network of shell companies controlled by the Malith Consortium. A human shipping clerk found records of weapon deliveries to remote outposts that officially did not exist. A human student at an alien military academy reported conversations about planned operations that matched the timing of recent attacks. The Guardian crew began preparing their trap with the same quiet efficiency they had shown since leaving Nexus Prime. They did not plan to capture Counselor Vex in a dramatic confrontation. Instead, they would ensure that he had no escape routes when the evidence was revealed. Engineer Wallace worked with the ship's fabrication systems to create devices that could monitor and record quantum communication transmissions. These devices were small enough to be hidden in routine equipment deliveries to Nexus Prime and other key locations. Once in place, they would provide real-time evidence of any treasonous communications. Navigator Barnes plotted courses that would allow the Guardian to position monitoring satellites at critical points throughout the affected star systems. The satellites were disguised as navigation beacons and communication relays that would appear normal to casual observation. However, they were actually sophisticated surveillance devices that could track ship movements and intercept messages. Medical Officer Clark prepared special medical nanits that could be introduced into the ventilation systems of suspect vessels and facilities. These nanits were harmless, but would allow the Guardian to track the movement of specific individuals by detecting unique biological signatures. Anyone who breathed the treated air would carry trace markers for several weeks. Chief Tactical Officer Lewis designed a series of scenarios for capturing pirate vessels without destroying them. The goal was not to eliminate the pirates, but to take them alive for interrogation. The information they possessed about their employers would be crucial for exposing the full extent of the conspiracy. Communications Specialist Murphy established a secure network that would allow simultaneous transmission of evidence to news organizations, law enforcement agencies, and government officials across the galaxy. When the time came to reveal the conspiracy, the information would spread too quickly for anyone to suppress or deny. Dr. Turner completed his psychological analysis of Counselor Vex and developed a detailed prediction of how the Malith politician would react when confronted with evidence of his crimes. Turner identified the specific pressure points that would cause Vex to make mistakes and reveal additional information about his co-conspirators. The Guardian continued its silent patrol while the other fleets engaged in increasingly futile battles with pirate forces. The human ship appeared to be accomplishing nothing while the major powers demonstrated their military might in spectacular fashion. None of the alien commanders suspected that the quiet human vessel was systematically dismantling the entire pirate operation from within. Captain Morrison received a private communication from Elder Voss, expressing concern about the Guardian's apparent lack of activity. The Nexari diplomat worried that the humans were not contributing meaningfully to the anti-piracy effort. Morrison assured him that his crew was gathering valuable intelligence, but he did not reveal the true scope of their investigation. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place when Williams intercepted a communication between Counselor Vex and an unknown recipient in the Outer Rim territories. The message contained detailed information about upcoming diplomatic missions and military patrol schedules. More importantly, it included instructions for a major attack planned against a peace conference that could prevent a war between. The Guardian drifted silently through the debris field near the abandoned mining station at Kepler 442. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge watching the tactical display as his crew prepared for the most critical phase of their operation. The ship appeared to be conducting a routine patrol, but every system was ready for immediate action. Communications Specialist Murphy sent carefully crafted false information through the compromised channels that Counselor Vex had been using to coordinate pirate attacks. The fabricated intelligence suggested that a valuable diplomatic convoy would be passing through this system in 6 hours, carrying trade agreements worth billions of credits and traveling with minimal protection. The bait was irresistible. Within 2 hours, pirate vessels began arriving in the system from multiple directions. The Guardian's passive sensors detected 15 ships of various sizes, all moving toward the intercept coordinates that Murphy had provided. The pirates were expecting an easy target and a massive payday. Chief Tactical Officer Lewis monitored the approaching vessels from his station. The pirate ships were well armed and professionally organized, confirming Dr. Turner's analysis that this was not a simple criminal operation. These were military-grade vessels with advanced weapons and experienced crews, far beyond what typical space criminals could afford or operate. Engineer Wallace activated the hidden monitoring devices that had been placed throughout the system over the past several weeks. These sensors provided detailed information about each pirate ship's capabilities, crew complement, and defensive systems. The data would be crucial for disabling the vessels without causing unnecessary casualties. Medical Officer Clark prepared specialized sedative compounds that could be delivered through the ventilation systems of captured vessels. The goal was to incapacitate pirate crews quickly and safely, allowing for interrogation while minimizing the risk of violent resistance or suicide. Attempts that might destroy valuable evidence. Navigator Barnes positioned the Guardian within a gravitational shadow of a large asteroid, using natural phenomena to mask their presence while maintaining perfect observation of the intercept zone. The pirate vessels assumed they were alone in the system and made no effort to conduct thorough sensor sweeps. The trap was sprung when the pirates moved to attack the Phantom convoy. Captain Morrison gave a single quiet command, and the Guardians' systems came online simultaneously. What had appeared to be a damaged exploration vessel suddenly revealed itself as a sophisticated intelligence platform equipped with the most advanced human technology. The Guardian's primary weapon was not destructive firepower, but electromagnetic pulse generators that could disable enemy vessels without destroying them. Lewis targeted the pirate ships in precise sequence, shutting down their engines, weapons, and communication systems faster than their crews could react. Within minutes, 15 dangerous vessels were floating helplessly in space. Boarding parties, led by Security Chief Rodriguez, moved swiftly to secure each disabled ship. The teams used non-lethal weapons and advanced medical equipment to subdue pirate crews with minimal violence. Clark's sedative compounds proved highly effective, allowing the humans to take control of each vessel without significant resistance. The interrogations began immediately using Dr. Turner's psychological profiles and pressure techniques. Pirate captains were professional criminals, but they were not prepared for the systematic psychological manipulation that Turner had developed based on his extensive study of various species' behavioral patterns. Within hours, the humans had extracted detailed information about the entire operation. The evidence was overwhelming. The pirates possessed communication devices provided by Counselor Vex, payment records showing transfers from Malith Consortium accounts, and detailed instructions for specific attacks designed to disrupt diplomatic relationships between various species. Most importantly, they revealed the location of Vex's primary coordination center and the identities of his co-conspirators. While the Guardians secured the pirate fleet, Williams activated her network of human assets across the galaxy in a carefully synchronized operation. The plan had been months in preparation, with every element timed to occur simultaneously across dozens of star systems. A human journalist working for the Galactic News Network received a complete package of evidence documenting a conspiracy. Within minutes, the story was broadcasting across every major communication channel in the galaxy. The evidence was so comprehensive and well documented that denial or suppression would be impossible. Human traders in major commercial centers began sharing financial records that traced illegal payments and weapon purchases back to their sources. The documentation showed a clear pattern of funds flowing from the Malith Consortium to various criminal organizations, with Counselor Vex personally authorizing many of the transactions. Human researchers at universities and institutes across the galaxy simultaneously published detailed analyses of the pirate attacks, demonstrating the mathematical impossibility of such coordination without inside information. The academic papers provided scientific proof that the attacks had been planned and coordinated by someone with access to high-level intelligence. Technicians working in communication centers began releasing intercepted transmissions that showed Vex personally directing specific pirate operations. The quantum signatures of these messages were verified by independent sources, making forgery impossible and providing legal evidence that would stand up in any galactic court. Meanwhile, Counselor Vex was preparing to leave Nexus Prime for what he claimed was an urgent diplomatic mission. His private vessel was already being loaded with personal possessions and sensitive documents. Vex believed he could escape to a safe haven in neutral territory before the conspiracy was discovered. However, Engineer Wallace had anticipated this possibility weeks earlier. Every potential escape route for Nexus Prime had been quietly monitored and blocked using devices disguised as routine maintenance equipment. Navigation beacons had been reprogrammed to provide false coordinates. Communication relays had been modified to intercept and redirect messages. When Vex attempted to launch his escape vessel, he discovered that the ship's navigation computer was malfunctioning. The backup systems also failed to respond properly. Emergency communication channels produced only static. What should have been a simple departure became a series of mysterious technical failures that trapped him on the station. Admiral Parker chose this moment to request an emergency session of the Galactic Council. She appeared in the main chamber with a complete presentation prepared, including visual evidence, financial records, communication intercepts, and testimony from captured pirates. The documentation was so thorough that even Vex's supporters could not dispute its accuracy. The presentation revealed not just the immediate conspiracy but a comprehensive analysis of how such operations could be prevented in the future. Parker offered to share human intelligence methods and security protocols with all member species, providing them with tools to detect and counter similar threats before they could succeed. Dr. Turner's psychological analysis proved accurate when Vex was confronted with the evidence. Under pressure, the Malith politician attempted to blame his subordinates and claim ignorance of the full scope of the operation. However, his reactions followed the exact patterns that Turner had predicted, allowing the humans to extract additional information about other conspirators and hidden assets. The Vorthic General Corax, who had previously dismissed humans as weak, stood before the assembled council and formally acknowledged the effectiveness of the human operation. He admitted that brute force tactics had accomplished nothing, while quiet intelligence work had achieved total victory without firing a shot. Prime Calculator Zenth of the Ashkari performed rapid calculations, demonstrating that the probability of success for such a complex operation should have been nearly impossible. Yet humanity had achieved it by accounting for variables that other species had never considered, including psychological factors, social dynamics, and long-term strategic planning. Elder Vos of the Nexari expressed amazement at the scope of human preparation and coordination. He realized that the human assets scattered across the galaxy represented an intelligence network more sophisticated than anything his ancient civilization had ever developed. Yet it had been built through peaceful cooperation rather than coercion or conquest. The captured pirate vessels were turned over to appropriate authorities for legal processing, but the humans retained copies of all evidence for future reference. The financial networks used to fund the operation were exposed and shut down, preventing similar conspiracies from accessing the same resources. Councilor Vex and his co-conspirators faced immediate arrest and prosecution under galactic law. However, the real victory was not the capture of criminals, but the establishment of new security protocols based on human intelligence methods that would make future conspiracies much more difficult to organize and execute. Captain Morrison addressed the Council one final time before the Guardian departed for Earth. He explained that humanity's approach to galactic security was based on prevention rather than reaction, understanding rather than force, and cooperation rather than domination. The pirates had been deaf. 3 weeks after the conspiracy was exposed, representatives from across the galaxy gathered once again in the main chamber of Nexus Prime. The atmosphere was different now. Where once there had been loud displays of power and competitive demonstrations of strength, there was now a quiet sense of respect and curiosity about the species that had changed everything without anyone noticing. Admiral Parker stood before the assembled council to deliver her final report on the anti-piracy operation. The chamber was unusually silent as delegates leaned forward to hear every word. Even the usually boisterous Vorthic representatives sat quietly, their weapons stored away, and their attention focused completely on the human speaker. The numbers were impressive, but not in the way that other species measured success. 0 casualties among law enforcement personnel. 0 civilian ships destroyed during the operation. 0 innocent lives lost in the pursuit of justice. The pirates themselves had been captured alive and were providing valuable information about other criminal networks throughout the galaxy. But the real achievement was not what had been destroyed or captured. It was what had been prevented. Dr. Turner's analysis showed that Councilor Vex's conspiracy would have led to a war between the Helian Federation and the Cephalians within 6 months. The economic disruption alone would have cost billions of lives across dozens of systems. General Corix of the Vorthic stood to address the assembly. His massive frame dominated the center of the chamber as he spoke in a voice much quieter than his usual booming tone. He admitted that his species had always equated strength with the ability to destroy enemies quickly and decisively. The human operation had forced him to reconsider this fundamental assumption. The Vorthic military had committed 50 warships and thousands of Oz personnel to hunt pirates for months without achieving meaningful results. A single human vessel with 30 crew members had ended the threat completely in a matter of weeks. More importantly, they had done so in a way that actually strengthened galactic security rather than simply eliminating one specific danger. Prime Calculator Zenth of the Ashkari projected complex mathematical models into the air above the assembly. His calculations showed that the human approach had achieved a success rate that his people's most advanced computers had rated as statistically impossible. The variables involved in coordinating such an operation across multiple star systems should have made failure inevitable. Yet humanity had succeeded by treating the galaxy not as a mathematical problem to be solved, but as a complex social system to be understood. They had spent decades studying alien psychology, building relationships, and preparing for challenges that other species could not even imagine. The Ashkari had focused on technological superiority, while humans had focused on understanding. Elder Voss of the Nexari shared his people's perspective on the human achievement. His ancient civilization had prided itself on wisdom accumulated over thousands of years. They had developed sophisticated diplomatic traditions and cultural practices that helped maintain peace between different species. But the humans had accomplished, in decades, what the Nexari had been trying to achieve for millennia. The key difference was approach. The Nexari had focused on creating formal agreements and ceremonial protocols that governed interactions between species. Humans had instead focused on understanding the underlying motivations and fears that drove interspecies conflicts. They had built a network based on personal relationships rather than official treaties. Captain Morrison was invited to explain humanity's philosophy to the assembled delegates. He spoke without notes or prepared speeches, addressing the council in the same quiet, direct manner that had characterized all human interaction since their arrival. His words carried more weight than the loudest declarations from other species. Morrison explained that Earth had spent centuries learning a painful lesson about the nature of conflict. Humans had fought devastating wars using increasingly powerful weapons, always believing that superior force would bring lasting peace. They had discovered that victory achieved through destruction only created the conditions for future conflicts. The breakthrough had come when humanity realized that their greatest strength was not their ability to build better weapons, but their capacity to understand other perspectives. Every human sent into space had been trained not just in technology and tactics, but in psychology, sociology, and cultural analysis. Dr. Turner presented his comprehensive study of galactic psychology to the council. His research had identified common patterns in how different species made decisions, formed alliances, and responded to threats. This knowledge had allowed humanity to predict and prevent conflicts before they could escalate into violence. Study revealed something that surprised even the humans themselves. Despite their obvious differences in appearance, biology, and culture, all sapient species shared certain fundamental characteristics. They valued security for their families, prosperity for their communities, and respect from their peers. Understanding these shared values had been the key to successful cooperation. Intelligence Officer Williams described the human information network that had made the anti-piracy operation possible. She explained that every human in space had volunteered for their assignments and received extensive training before leaving Earth. They were not spies or agents in any military sense, but ordinary citizens who understood their role in maintaining galactic peace. The network operated on principles of mutual benefit rather than coercion. Human traders offered valuable goods and services to alien communities. Human researchers contributed knowledge and expertise to alien institutions. Human workers helped maintain and improve alien infrastructure. In return, they gained access to information and built relationships that could be activated when necessary. What made the system remarkable was its voluntary nature. No human was ordered to participate or punished for refusing. The network existed because individual humans chose to contribute to something larger than themselves. This approach had created a level of loyalty and dedication that could not be achieved through force or payment. Engineer Wallace demonstrated some of the technologies that had made the operation successful. The devices appeared simple and unremarkable, designed to blend seamlessly into existing systems without attracting attention. Their true sophistication lay not in raw power, but in their ability to gather and transmit information without being detected. The monitoring equipment could be mass-produced using standard materials available on any industrialized world. Communication protocols could be adapted to work with any species technology. Most importantly, the methods could be shared freely with other civilizations without compromising human security interests. Communications specialist Murphy explained how the evidence had been disseminated simultaneously across the galaxy. The operation required precise timing and coordination across dozens of systems, but it relied on existing communication networks rather than specialized equipment. Any species could implement similar capabilities with proper training and organization. Medical Officer Clark discussed the non-lethal methods used to subdue pirate crews and gather information. The techniques were based on detailed knowledge of alien biology and psychology rather than advanced technology. They could be adapted for use by any species and would be particularly effective when different civilizations shared their medical knowledge. Navigator Barnes presented her analysis of how the Guardian had moved through space undetected. The methods relied on understanding natural phenomena and using them to mask artificial activities. The techniques could be taught to any species and would improve their ability to conduct reconnaissance and intelligence gathering operations. Security Chief Rodriguez described the boarding and capture procedures that had allowed the humans to take control of 15 pirate vessels without casualties. The tactics emphasized speed, surprise, and overwhelming force, applied precisely where it would be most effective. The key was detailed preparation and intelligence rather than superior weapons or technology. As the presentations concluded, the true scope of human preparation became clear to the assembled delegates. Humanity had not simply solved a specific problem, but had developed a comprehensive approach to galactic security that could prevent similar problems from occurring in the future. The most sobering realization came when Elder Voss asked a direct question that had been troubling many delegates. He wanted to know whether humanity could have used these same capabilities to conquer the galaxy if they had chosen a different path. Admiral Parker answered honestly. The Human Intelligence Network, combined with their understanding of alien psychology and their advanced planning capabilities, could indeed have been used for conquest rather than protection. The infrastructure was already in place. The knowledge had already been gathered. The relationships had already been built. The choice to use these capabilities for peaceful purposes had been deliberate and unanimous among Earth's leadership. Humanity had learned from their own history that conquest created more problems than it solved. They preferred to be feared by threats rather than by friends. General Corax asked why humanity had revealed their capabilities so openly instead of keeping them secret for future use. Captain Morrison explained that secret CR